guys, what's up? It's Ray Munger here. Gonna do a little NFL mock draft for the boys at the FBI podcast. I want to thank them for the opportunity to come on and talk some football with you. So with that, let's just jump right into it, not waste any time. On the clock first, you got the Cleveland Browns. Even though they got Tyrod Taylor, I think they're going to plan for the future a little bit here and go Sam Darnold from USC. So let's talk about what Sam Darnold does best first. He really makes all the bucket throws, the deep throws. He's a vertical style quarterback, looks to push the ball down the field. One thing that he could really stand to work on is taking care of the football a little bit more. And it's been really interesting to me. Baker Mayfield gets compared mostly to Johnny Manziel. And when you turn the film on, the comparison of Johnny Manziel, if everybody wants to make that, seems to be more towards Sam Darnold. A little bit Captain Catastrophe. You'll see multiple times on the field, the ball's rolling around, and Sam Darnold's picking it up and making a play with it, and that's a little bit more of the Manziel type passer than Baker Mayfield. I like Darnold. And I think he fits Cleveland because of the vertical aspect of his game. He's going to have Josh Gordon there to make plays down the field. I think that's a solid pick for them. You'd like to see Darnold be a little bit more accurate, and you'd like for him to take care of the football a little bit better. But I've got Darnold at 1 to the Browns. And second pick in this year's NFL draft, you got the Giants. And the Giants have had a need for a very long time, dating back to when they were picking Andre Williams out of Boston College, and they've tried to do it with the cat from UCLA last year, and it just hasn't worked at running back. So the second pick, I've got the Giants taking Saquon Barkley. This cat is a human highlight reel. He is a home run hitter. It seems like you turn the film of Saquon Barkley on, and it's 15 minutes of him snapping off 75-yard touchdown runs and making people look silly. His lateral ability is amazing. The jump cuts, the quickness, everything is really amazing. The potential to be a Hall of Fame running back is definitely there, and I think that's what the Giants are looking for. The only issue you might have with Saquon Barkley, and it kind of popped up in midseason this year, is he is a home run hitter. And sometimes it's not his favorite thing to take the dirty 3-yard run in between the tackles, He's looking to score with the football. And that may be a little bit of a product of the offensive line that he had, because they had some struggles during the year. But yeah, you'd maybe like to see him grind it out a little bit more. But you can't dismiss the playmaking ability of Saquon Barkley, and that's why I think he goes number 2. Number 3 pick in this year's draft, I've got the Jets taking Josh Rosen, and I hadn't watched a lot of Josh Rosen. You've got UCLA playing, and they play what seems like at midnight every Saturday night out on the West Coast. I was pleasantly surprised with Josh Rosen. You hear a lot of people talking about the off-the-field stuff with Rosen. Is he too smart for his own good and crazy stuff like that? Does he love football? And I can't sit here and say that. I obviously don't know Josh Rosen, but I do know from the film I really like him. I'm really intrigued by him as a prospect. So the thing that Josh Rosen does is he really controls the West Coast style intermediate passing game, and that's his wheelhouse. He likes to work in that range, the intermediate range, and that's where he thrives. So what he does well, and differently from Darnold, is he drives the football really well in the intermediate passing game. It's accurate. It's thrown with really high pace, and he's thrown into really small windows. That's really where you see his arm strength come into play, because he isn't the vertical passer like Sam Darnold, but he's more of an accurate West Coast passer. And in the 4th pick, you've got, I have a trade here. I have Cleveland trading down and Buffalo trading 12 and 22 to get to 4. And I have them trading to 4 to take Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been a polarizing topic this entire draft season. with people that love him and people that hate him and people that just can't stop talking about him. So what you like about Josh Allen is the reason that Buffalo comes to get him to 4. It's the arm. It's the physical traits. He's going to play football in Buffalo in the winter. You have to have a howitzer to move the football through the air up there. It didn't work so well for Tyrod Taylor. I think that's kind of why you saw him become a little bit more of a conservative passer and not taking so many shots, is because he doesn't have the arm Josh Allen possesses. So Allen really can bring it with the football and the physical tools, and that's what Buffalo's looking for. He reminds me, purely as a passer, not as a runner, of Cam Newton. He's got a lot of that to him, where it's all power all the time, trying to stretch the field with his arm, trying to make big plays with his arm. I don't think he's the runner that Cam Newton is, although he is athletic and he will be able to help some there. But I think he needs some cleaning up in the fine-tuning aspects of being a quarterback. His accuracy needs help. His pre-snap recognition needs help, identifying blitzes and moving his guys where he needs to be. But physically, Josh Allen is the real deal. And I also think it's a good landing spot for him because A.J. McCarron is there to play quarterback this year. And the Buffalo Bills aren't looking to win anything big this year. So it'll maybe be more of like a redshirt year for Josh Allen. I think that's what he needs because physically it's all there, but the rest of playing quarterback is not there and it needs some time. With the 5th pick, I've got the Denver Broncos taking Baker Mayfield. It just seems like maybe a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction from the Broncos front office because if you remember, they loved the physical prototype quarterback. They are picking guys that are like a basketball team back there. 6'8" guys, big arms, and that's what they've wanted. I think they're going to find themselves thinking that didn't work, so let's do something else, and Baker Mayfield is exactly the opposite of that. He's not the physical prototype. He's a little bit on the shorter side, but I don't think that's going to hamper his ability to make plays. He's extremely mobile. He's extremely smart. He's gritty and tough. He does all the things that you want a quarterback to do from a leadership standpoint. The only real thing that I have with Baker Mayfield is you don't know how well he's going to stand up physically taking that much punishment because he does move around a lot in and out of the pocket, and taking hits and being a smaller size guy, it can cause problems, especially at quarterback. I like Baker Mayfield as a playmaker. The dude, he's always making plays. I'm a Georgia fan. Like, we've had to fight him tooth and nail in the Rose Bowl, and that dude just kept coming back. I think Denver picks him here because they need that on offense. They need somebody to help Demaryius Thomas and help Emmanuel Sanders, and the last quarterbacks that they've picked that are the physical prototypes just haven't done it. So I think they're going to go Baker Mayfield and hope that his leadership and his gritty playmaking ability can move them into more wins next year. With the 6th pick, I've got the Indianapolis Colts taking Bradley Chubb. This dude is impressive. He is the full package at defensive end or edge, rush end, whatever you'd like to call it. Big, strong, fast, physical, everything. So along with all of those traits, the thing that Bradley Chubb does really well is he separates. And that being like a rip move or the push-pull move or stacking and shedding offensive tackles. He is consistently separating himself from offensive tackles to go make plays. The dude's a machine. He does everything wonderfully from a defensive end or edge standpoint. I don't see an issue with Bradley Chubb at all. The motor's there. The physical traits are there. He's excited to play football. As you can see, he spent 45 minutes snatching towels from the dudes from Clemson last year. Like, he loves to be on the football field. He is a stud player. Indianapolis should be really excited to get this cat. The 7th pick, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Denzel Ward. Speed and length are this guy's game. He is stride for stride in man coverage whenever he's in man coverage, and then perfectly timed, he's breaking the window of the wide receiver's hands and the ball's going on the ground, or he's taking the ball from him. This dude's legit. He's really impressive to watch, and I wasn't sure if I would go Derwin James, the safety from Florida State, here, or Denzel Ward. I think Tampa Bay has a need at both spots. I do think there's a little bit more depth at safety than there is at corner, so that's why I decided Tampa take the long, speedy, playmaking corner, Denzel Ward from Ohio State. With the 8th pick, I've got the Chicago Bears taking Quentin Nelson, the guard out of Notre Dame. Quentin Nelson was created in a lab. This dude he's a mauler. Okay. Then he's the perfect athletic pulling guard. And also, he's nasty. Every single play, he's trying to bury you. So it's a little, is it hard to get excited about guard play? For some people, but when you turn on the film of Quentin Nelson, he's body bagging folks. And there are a couple guards in this draft that are that way, but it is every play from Quentin Nelson. His technique is perfect. His strength is perfect. I actually just saw, I can't remember who to credit on the video, but I saw he's into MMA and that he's using his hands, and you've seen defenders use the MMA stuff to up their game. Well, now he's doing it back to them. He's essentially the perfect prospect. Is he safe? Yes, but safe and exciting can be the same thing, because Quentin Nelson is a machine. He's a great pick for the Bears right here. With the 9th pick, I've got San Francisco 49ers taking Tremaine Edmunds out of Virginia Tech. So Edmunds is a really intriguing player to me because he kind of doesn't play like his height and weight sound. He's a 6'6", 250-pound outside linebacker, but he's mostly a space player. Spends a lot of time in coverage, spends a lot of time not rushing the passer, which is a little bit different to me. But you can't deny the tools are there. The freaky athleticism, the speed, and another upside that the 49ers are getting with him is he's only 19 years old. So you've got a lot of time with him to create the player that you want out of him. I think this pick is a little bit more potential than production, but the potential is definitely there. And I say all this, it's not like he's not making plays for Virginia Tech. He is a really good prospect. He's a really good football player. But to be the first linebacker off the board, I think is mostly about what he could be, not what he is right now. At number 10, I've got the Oakland Raiders selecting Roquan Smith, inside linebacker out of Georgia. Now, I'm a Chiefs fan and a Georgia fan. This pick makes me a little bit sad because Roquan Smith is a heat-seeking missile. He is going to cause problems for everyone he plays from now until he's done playing. The dude flies sideline to sideline, coming up with big hits and big plays all the time. He's a really fantastic inside linebacker. The only thing that you can maybe say that Roquan Smith gets knocked for, gets a ding for, is his separation from bigger interior linemen and the ability they have to kind of overwhelm him. He typically is smart enough to see these things and not be in the path, and he can avoid, and he uses speed to get around them and disengage from the interior blockers coming to get him, and he's still going to make plays. I don't think that it's going to be a downfall for Roquan Smith. I think that he'll be able to develop some hand usage and be a more consistent separator to go make plays for the Raiders. With the 11th pick, I've got the Miami Dolphins taking defensive tackle Vita Vea out of Washington. This pick is more about Miami than it is about Vita Vea. Vita Vea is a stud interior defensive lineman. He is powerful. He stacks and sheds better than any defensive lineman in this draft. He can push the pocket. He can do all the things that you want your interior defensive lineman to do. Miami's got a lot of needs. but they're enamored with taking big-time defensive linemen. And a lot of times they're taking them at the wrong time. Like Mario Williams is playing for them right now, and then Ndamukong Suh was a big signing for him. They're enamored with defensive linemen, and they're not surrounding those defensive linemen with great talent. I think there's other ways they could go here, but it just feels like a Miami pick to take a defensive tackle this early with other needs. And that's not, I don't want to take anything from Vita Vea. This dude, he's a monster. He does, like I said, he does everything you want from an inside defensive lineman's presence. He can play the nose, he can play the one tech, he can play the three tech, he can play anywhere inside, and he plays with power, but power is his game. He doesn't have a ton of speed rush moves or the finesse moves or anything like that. He's a power player, and for that reason, I think that's why the Dolphins are going to take him at 11. With the 12th pick, and this is part of the trade from Buffalo, I've got the Cleveland Browns taking Minkah Fitzpatrick, the hybrid safety corner out of Alabama. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a really impressive football player. This dude can do it all. He can cover like a cover corner. He can come in and he can fill like a linebacker and make tackles. He blitzes off the edge. And is really effective at blitzing. I didn't realize until I started studying the film of Minkah Fitzpatrick how effective of a blitzer he is. The dude is a disruptor. He is the complete package for the new type of space player that the NFL is looking for. He's fast. He's smart. He can play linebacker. He can play corner, which is the traits that everybody is looking for now on defense because it's so spread out and the game's evolved. Minkah Fitzpatrick is really great. It's not hard to see why Nick Saban loved him and raved about him and why he played from a freshman at Alabama. He's a really, really great player. I'm excited to see what happens for him for the Browns. I think he's an immediate upgrade to anything they've got right there, and that's why I've got him going at 12 to the Browns. With the 13th pick, I've got the Washington Redskins going Jaire Alexander, the corner from Louisville. Jaire Alexander is the prototypical ball-hawking cover corner. This dude has one job, and it is to take the ball from you and you try and throw it to the receiver he's on. And he does it really well. His ball skills are terrific. And he also has some post-catch ball skills, forcing fumbles, getting his hands in the right spot to make what looks like a catch, a pass, break up. He's long, he's fast. He is what the NFL guys want a corner to look like now. Like 6 feet tall, 195 pounds, and really fast. Really great ball skills. Probably the top cover corner in the draft. He'll do a little bit of run support stuff for you. It's not his main MO. He wants the football. He also has some skills as a kick returner. He's got a couple kick return touchdowns, kick return, punt returner. He's a really solid player out of Louisville. He's immediately going to learn from Josh Norman being there in the for the Redskins. I think he replaces the losses at corner that they've had this year. And I think it's a really solid pick. I really like Jaire Alexander. All right, with the 14th pick, I have the Chargers trading up with Green Bay, trading the 17th pick and a second-round pick to get ahead of the Arizona Cardinals to take Lamar Jackson. The ability to run, the Michael Vick-style playmaking ability with his legs, and then the high-quality passer that Lamar Jackson is. It's just a recipe to make an offense go in this wide open, spread out game of football that the NFL has evolved to. He gets knocked a little bit for his arm. He may not have the strongest arm in the class. I think that his ability to maneuver in the pocket and maneuver outside of the pocket, that kind of bypasses the need for the huge arm for Lamar Jackson. The playmaking ability with the arm is there. He has enough to fit it in tight windows. He can make all of the throws. It's not going to look like Josh Allen's throwing the football, but the ability is there. the Chargers are going to have to look to move on from Phillip Rivers. He's been there for 100 years. He is turning the football over at an exponential rate for the Chargers. It's time to find an heir apparent there. And Lamar Jackson is a big-time playmaker, and he's a solid fit with guys like Keenan Allen. And I think he actually makes Melvin Gordon a better player out of the backfield too, kind of opens it up for him some too. So I like Lamar Jackson on a trade-up to get ahead of Arizona for the Chargers on the 14th pick. With the 15th pick, I've got the Arizona Cardinals going Derwin James, the hybrid safety out of Florida State. This dude is going to replace Tyrann Mathieu in that defense. Well, if you can, because Tyrann Mathieu is a very integral part of that. But he's the same type of hybrid player. The thing you get with Derwin James a little bit more than Tyrann Mathieu is the physicality, because this dude will thump. He loves to come up and fill. He loves to put big hits on people. And he also still maintains the ball skills to be an effective, probably safety, maybe slot corner. But I really like Derwin James because of his physicality and his versatility. I think after the safety losses that the Cardinals have had with Mathieu, and then the year before they lost Tony Jefferson, they still need a presence behind Patrick Peterson to make that secondary viable defense. I really like Derwin James. He maybe has slid a little bit in my mock draft, and that's not because of him. That's just because of kind of the way the board fell. He's probably a top 5, top 10 talent. And I think Arizona, even though they'll be initially a little disappointed that they don't get a quarterback in Lamar Jackson, because that's a need, but they don't get a quarterback, but they're going to get a really solid player in Derwin James. With the 16th pick, I've got the Baltimore Ravens taking the inside linebacker Rashaan Evans from Alabama. So I've got my notes here, right? And you kind of follow off my notes, follow a script. And the note I have for Rashaan Evans is perfect. He's absolutely the best football player I watched this year. The dude is everywhere, and he is always arriving with a bad attitude. He loves to hit. He can play the traditional middle linebacker where he's filling and making it and solidifying run fits and making plays in the run game. He can slide out to the edge, and he can come off the edge at a blistering pace with great bend, plays with great leverage, and sack the quarterback. He is also a perfect fit for the Ravens, who are kind of desperate for an identity on defense since Ray Lewis left. Ozzie Newsome loves to pick Alabama players, and this is why. Rashaan Evans is why. Because they look like aliens. They come from a different planet. This dude, Rashaan Evans, is maybe my favorite player in the draft, and he can just flat get it. He's a perfect fit for the Baltimore Ravens. Big hitter, and also he's always in the right spot at the right time. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to play football. He's played a ton of football for Alabama, for Nick Saban, which is the highest level in college that you can get. I'm really excited to see what Rashaan Evans becomes with the Baltimore Ravens, because they typically develop really well, especially on defense. So I'm really excited for this pick for the Ravens, with Rashaan Evans going to them at 16. With the 17th pick, I've got the Green Bay Packers in a trade down from the Chargers, taking Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. The Packers need some help protecting Aaron Rodgers. They've had some offensive line losses in the last few years. McGlinchey's not a flashy pick. He's not a flashy player. Whereas his former college teammate, Quentin Nelson, is driving people into the ground, and he is a highlight reel at guard. McGlinchey's solid and steady. He's never flashy. He's not typically burying people in the ground. But what he is doing is executing his assignment every play over and over and over again. And you can count on Mike McGlinchey to do his job. And there's a lot to be said for that. He does possess all the physical traits. Obviously, he's big and strong. And his technique is really well, and I think is really good. And I think that's what helps him play really well. He's just a steady performer. You know what you're going to get from him, and I think that reliability will really help Aaron Rodgers and that Packers offense get back to where they used to be as a high-profile, high-flying, big point-scoring offense. So I got Mike McGlinchey going to Green Bay at 17. With the 18th pick, I've got the Seattle Seahawks taking offensive guard from Georgia, Isaiah Wynn. Seattle needs help up front. Russell Wilson's legs are still tired from running from defensive linemen, and it's April. Isaiah Wynn played left tackle and played some interior spots for Georgia earlier in his career. He played left tackle this past season and was the best left tackle in the SEC. He's projected as a guard in the NFL because of his size. He's a little bit undersized. But I think there's position versatility there for Seattle. If they can't get some guys back at left tackle from injury that they've had, or if those guys just flat aren't good enough or aren't better than Isaiah Wynn, I could see him sliding out to tackle. He's a real technician, so he's not the road grader type of tackle or guard or lineman for that matter. He really beats you with his technique. He likes to short sit you, so where the defensive lineman gets his launch, and then before that defensive lineman knows it, Isaiah Wynn is set up and in his chili with his hands in the right spot and just controlling the movement of that defensive lineman. He does that over and over and over again this past season. He's a technician. He's a steady performer. He's not going to give up sacks. He's typically not going to be at the second level burying defenders like Quentin Nelson. But I think you can rely again on Isaiah Wynn, and he's a technician at the position of offensive guard, or I think he's got scheme versatility to play offensive tackle for the Seahawks, who really need it the most. With the 19th pick in this year's draft, I have the Dallas Cowboys taking offensive guard from UTEP, Will Hernandez. Will Hernandez is the fit for the Cowboys here, even though they've got needs at wide receiver with Dez Bryant being gone, because of Ezekiel Elliott. The Dallas Cowboys are a completely different team when Ezekiel Elliott is an effective running back or when he's on the field for them, frankly. I think the Cowboys desire to have the best offensive line in the league, weighs heavy on them again now, and that's why they take Hernandez. They want to run the football. They want to support Dak Prescott, and they think they can get wide receiver help later on in the draft, even though it's not very deep. So we talked about some offensive linemen earlier on in this and how they're not maulers, how they're not trying to bury you, how they're technicians, and how they're beating you with fundamentals, things like that. Will Hernandez is a giant assassin at offensive guard. All he wants to do is body bag people from his spot. He is an absolute mauler, and I think that's going to fit what the Cowboys want to do with the run game. Just be physical, just beat you up. Will Hernandez is that guy. I hadn't watched any UTEP live, so you have to go get the film on him, and this dude is just trying to hurt people. He wants to pound the rock, and I think when he gets high-quality offensive players around him, he's only going to be a better player because he was mauling people for a 1-10 UTEP team. They're really poor football team, really great player on there. So I'm excited to see Will Hernandez get to a high-quality offensive line and make it better instead of being the only focal point for a team. The dude is a punisher. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to benefit most of anybody from that. So that's why I've got the Dallas Cowboys taking Will Hernandez at 19. With the 20th pick, I've got the Detroit Lions taking edge rusher Marcus Davenport. Marcus Davenport is a great athlete. Marcus Davenport really needs to develop. He is a raw football player. I've seen the comparisons to Jadeveon Clowney made on a published article. No. He is not there yet. Maybe eventually he could be. The only thing that him and Jadeveon Clowney share are a body type. They're big, 6'6 plus, 260, 70-pound defenders. look like power forwards on an NBA team. Marcus Davenport is all about what he projects to be. And I think Detroit is seeing Ziggy Ansah when they see Marcus Davenport. They say, we developed a really great football player in Ezekiel Ansah out of BYU when he was just a really raw prospect. So I think they're going to try and pair Marcus Davenport with him and catch lightning in a bottle twice, essentially. I like what Marcus Davenport has to offer as an athlete with the speed. He's a little bit stiff, and he doesn't bend and run the loop as much as you'd like to get to the quarterback. But he does have the traits to develop, and I think that's why the Lions are going to take him with the 20th pick. With the 21st pick, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals taking offensive tackle Connor Williams from Texas. Connor Williams' tape this last year is not so great. It's inconsistent, maybe inconsistent due to injury, but his 2016 tape is really good. Connor Williams has some scheme versatility where he could kick in and play some guard, and he's really an intelligent football player and could play center for you. The thing that he does well is he anchors really well. He uses his butt and his thighs to sink and stone blockers that way. He also moves really well in space. Like, he can get out, he can lead a screen. He's a solid football player. The depth at offensive tackle on this draft to be like supremely impact players and come in and start day one is not really there. And this is going to start a little bit of a run and a theme on guys that need a little bit of help developing at the guard and tackle position here at the end of the first round. But Connor Williams, I think, to Cincy is a good fit because they need some more help there. And I think he can develop into a player that can produce for them in multiple positions, and I think they'll get something out of Connor Williams in Cincinnati. With the 22nd pick, I've got the Cleveland Browns taking Colton Miller, offensive tackle from UCLA. This pick is part of the Buffalo trade that Buffalo went to 4 with. Colton Miller is intriguing as a prospect because of his length and his athleticism. He's a really tall, big 6'9", 310 pounds. He moves really well in space. He needs to play with more power and better balance. So he gets his big, long frame out over his hips a lot. So he's essentially bending at his waist and not bending with his knees, and he doesn't maintain his power, and he can get knocked off by the bull rush because of that. If you could find a way to get Colton Miller to squat, to sit down, to sit in his steps, into his heels and dig in and be a powerful player, I think this is a great pick for Cleveland. He really needs to develop. This is, again, about potential over production at the college level. His film's iffy, but I think because of his length, because of his athleticism, I think the Browns take a chance on him here and say this could be the left tackle to be the next, the next all-pro tackle that they've got there, the next Joe Thomas, and those are big shoes to fill, and it'll take some development for Colton Miller to get there, but I think the ability's there if the coaching can catch up to him. With the 23rd pick, I've got the New England Patriots taking Josh Jackson. The Patriots have a definite need at corner. Malcolm Butler's gone, and everybody knows all the drama with that. And Josh Jackson is a really solid football player. He's got really good ball skills, and he's also willing to come up and tackle. The Patriots and Bill Belichick have a long and storied connection to Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. They're friends, and they know each other. Josh Jackson is very worthy of being a first-round corner. He's a really good player, but I think the connections and the way the Malcolm Butler situation played out, I think it's a perfect spot for Josh Jackson because Bill Belichick is familiar with Kirk Ferentz, and he's familiar with Kirk Ferentz players. The fit is just right for Josh Jackson to step in and make plays for the New England Patriots, and I think he will. He's ready to play day one. While he's not as flashy as Jair Alexander, he still brings some of the same things, and he's also a willing tackler. I really like Josh Jackson, and that's why I've got him going 23rd to the Patriots. With the 24th pick, I have the Carolina Panthers taking Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver from Alabama. Calvin Ridley is a really fun film study because he is fluid and smooth and graceful. He's a great route runner. He also is a really great hands catcher. He's not the biggest wide receiver that you're going to find, but he is the most fluid athlete in the wide receivers that are potential first-round players this year. Big-time production for Alabama. He's a big-time player. Carolina needs a player like Calvin Ridley to pair with the big typical wide receivers that they've got. Greg Olsen at tight end also. They're taking the big 6'6 guys, the jump ball guys, the possession guys. They need a speed merchant to stretch the field vertically and make plays for Cam. Calvin Ridley just immediately, by stepping on the field, makes Cam Newton a better player and a bigger threat to score touchdowns because of the vertical game that Ridley possesses. I think the Panthers are ecstatic to get Calvin Ridley here. The wide receiver class isn't so deep, especially for the first-round caliber players. But I think Calvin Ridley could go a little bit higher if a team decides to not draft based on need and just draft best player available. Ridley is a really solid player, and he's an immediate upgrade for the Panthers as soon as he gets into camp. So Calvin Ridley, 24th to the Carolina Panthers from Alabama. With the 25th pick, I have the Tennessee Titans taking wide receiver DJ Moore out of Maryland. DJ Moore was a little bit of an intriguing prospect to me because you hear people say Golden Tate as a player comp. And I really like player comps as wide receiver because I think it's the one place where you can, where they actually hold up. You can see that a guy plays like another guy. I didn't see Golden Tate. Golden Tate reminds me of a running back, which is what he was at Notre Dame. DJ Moore reminded me a little bit of Mike Wallace in his vertical game, and then a little bit of Tyler Lockett in the intermediate short game where he's relying on his quickness. He is extremely quick, and he is extremely fast. And one thing I really like to see from guys that are extremely fast is to pressure a defensive back's cushion. So DJ Moore likes to stem a lot of his routes, make his breaks inside or outside on the toes of the defensive back he's playing, which, if you just think about it, he will run headlong into your bubble and you are off balance. It throws you off and you don't know where he's going, and it makes his quickness and his quick twitch even more effective because he's doing it in a phone booth right next to you. DJ Moore is really intriguing because he is electric. I really think that DJ Moore's ability to separate in mesh routes, crossing routes, some twist out routes and slants, stuff like that, the short to intermediate game is really going to help the Tennessee passing game. DJ Moore is really intriguing. He's really fun to watch because he is wired. He is just going full bore, and it's quick twitch all the time. So I've got Tennessee taking him at 25 to really help out their passing game. With the 26th pick, I've got the Atlanta Falcons taking defensive tackle Taven Bryan out of Florida. Taven Bryan is a really interesting prospect. His teammates called him J.J. Watt. They thought that was the style of player that he reminded them of. And I will say Taven Bryan is a very disruptive force from defensive tackle. He can do it all. He can play the run, and he can penetrate and be a quality pass rusher for you. The only thing that you would like to see Taven Bryan do more is use his hands to separate. So what he typically likes to do is focus on his launch. He's got a really quick launch. He times the football really well. Powerful, fast off the football. But it kind of stops there, and because he is a supreme athlete, he just sloughs offensive linemen off. Like, he just slides by you with his power. He's stronger than you, so he runs by you, essentially. It's not going to be that way at the second level for Taven Bryan. He's going to have to develop some hand usage things. You hear the stories of Tamba Hali teaching guys to use their hands, and it's what made them a better player. Taven Bryan needs that type of player in his NFL career to help him become a fully functional impact player from the defensive tackle spot. He's got to get his hands up. He's got to use moves instead of just power at the next level. But his potential and his production at Florida and projecting to the NFL, Taven Bryan is going to be a quality player, and I think the Atlanta Falcons at 26 will be really happy to get him. With the 27th pick, I have the New Orleans Saints taking wide receiver Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton out of SMU is a really high-quality football player on a lower-level football team. He's big, he's physical, he does everything you could want him to do in the vertical passing game for a football team. I think it's just another it's another high-quality target for Drew Brees to just have. It's just a wealth of riches down there for him. It's really going to open up that passing game to have such a vertical threat there working. He's big and strong. He reminds me a little bit of Dez Bryant. There's talk of Courtland Sutton replacing Dez Bryant to the Cowboys at 19. That's a little bit high to me because as a route runner, he's not all there. It wasn't asked of him to run all of the routes that an NFL route tree will contain. He's mostly a vertical player with the verts, with the stop back shoulder fades, and some comeback routes. That's where he really worked well. He's a really solid player, all kinds of NCAA records for SMU. Really good player. I think the Saints and their myriad of riches just keep growing down there to support Drew Brees. But yeah, Courtland Sutton to the Saints at 27. I think it's a really solid pick. And I think they'll be really happy with him. With the 28th pick, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking the inside linebacker Leighton Vander Esch. Leighton Vander Esch has the potential to step in and fill the role as a player that Ryan Shazier did. He runs sideline to sideline really well. He's a solid tackler, although not a power hitter, he's not a real thumper, kind of run and tackle player. He's a really smart player. The thing that Leighton Vander Esch will need to work on at the next level is separation from blockers, and that's kind of a theme for some of the defensive players here. They can get overwhelmed. What Vander Esch will need to do is develop more upper body strength and hand usage and just develop ways to disengage from offensive linemen, tight ends coming to get him. But I do think he has the sideline-to-sideline run and tackle playmaking ability to fit a need that the Pittsburgh Steelers are really going to have right now. So that's why I've got him going 28 to the Steelers. With the 29th pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking offensive tackle Brian O'Neill from Pitt. Brian O'Neill is in the first round because of the lack of depth at offensive tackle. And that's not to say he's not a good player, but he really needs some development also. He's a raw player, and his strength is really his mobility and his ability to get out and lead screens, to pull, to be mobile and be a blocker in space. What he needs to do is he needs to add an anchor. He needs to add strength to hold up in an NFL season. Power rushers in the beginning, if you ask him to start right away, power rushers are going to have their way with him. He really needs to add strength to be a viable player, but the lack of offensive tackle depth drives Brian O'Neill into the first-round conversation for Jacksonville. With the 30th pick, I have the Minnesota Vikings taking center James Daniels from Iowa. James Daniels, on the other hand, does not need to add strength. That is the best part of his game. The bubble butt, the big thighs, bend at the knees, the constant power. James Daniels is a day one starter at center for the Minnesota Vikings. He can do anything you need him to do. Do you need him to block, to power block in a power run scheme or man run scheme? Do you need him to be able to move and be agile and get outside and lead a zone scheme? He's the complete package as for an NFL center. He does everything that you could want him to do. I think Minnesota, it's never probably exciting to draft a center in the first round because, I mean, nobody really gets excited about offensive linemen unless it's guys like Quentin Nelson or Will Hernandez. But James Daniels makes Minnesota a better football team from the second they say his name. So a really solid pick. I like James Daniels a lot, going 30 to Minnesota. With the 31st pick in the NFL draft, I have the New England Patriots going edge player Harold Landry out of Boston College. This is a little bit of a slide for Harold Landry, but I think it's a terrific landing spot for them, and it addresses a need for the Patriots. Harold Landry is a missile off the corner. The dude is all about speed, and he is all about it all the time coming to get the quarterback. His balance is good. He uses his hands to disengage. He launches like crazy, so fast off the football. He's also runs the loop really well and maintains his balance. He's the type of guy that can run full speed underneath your dining room table. And it's really awesome to see. If he can consistently maintain that and add a little bit more power to his game, he'll be a 3-down player in the NFL. But right now, as a speed rusher, he is the best pure speed rusher in the draft. He can flat get after it. Really solid pass rusher. Finishes at the quarterback really well. No problems there. A really good player. If you're a New England Patriots fan, you should be excited because this dude can bring it speed style off the edge. With the 32nd and final pick of the first round, I have the Philadelphia Eagles taking wide receiver Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M. Christian Kirk is a dynamic wide receiver that can threaten in the vertical passing game. He can also run the desired routes, the underneath routes, and separate from cover guys and make plays in that regard for you. Philadelphia has pass catching options, but I don't think other than Zach Ertz working the middle of the field with Trey Burton now, they're going to need an intermediate pass catcher. Christian Kirk can fill that and do more for them. Nelson Aguilar's there. Christian Kirk is an upgrade in my opinion. I liked Aguilar out of USC. Christian Kirk, I think, has more upside and more potential than Aguilar working out of the slot. I like Christian Kirk a lot to really upgrade things for Carson Wentz and make the Philadelphia Eagles attack a little bit better. Kirk reminds me a little bit of Jeremy Maclin. I said I like to do player comps for wide receivers because I think you can really see it. I like Jeremy Maclin and Christian Kirk. I think they're the same type of athlete. And the Doug Peterson to the Chiefs connection with Jeremy Maclin, that type of player, I think that's why Christian Kirk's in play at 32 for Philly. Well, guys, that was my first round mock draft for the FBI podcast. I want to thank Blake and the boys for letting me talk a little bit of football with them. I really appreciate the opportunity. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you've got feedback for me, I've got a Twitter handle. It's at RayMunger46. Hit me up on Twitter, man. I love to talk football all the time. Like I said, I really appreciate your time, and maybe we'll catch you guys later on a podcast. We'll see you.